Welcome to one of the most difficult things I have ever done. This is Sarkaz Only Integrated Strategies 3, Ending 3. Searching Waves 10. And I'm going to get into why it's Searching Waves 10 in a second, but first I have to just say for the record, I hate this opening stage. I know it's a common opinion, but I feel like it needs to be said. Symbiosis is awful. And it's awful because of the darned dog rush combined with the defense shredding enemies that just make short work of anyone you deploy. And I hate this one with such a fervent passion. It's the only one of the starting four that I have any issue with whatsoever. So I resent getting it so much. It's the only one where I consistently leak in, so whatever. It was an awkward start, but as you see, we pull it back together. Okay. Elephant in the room. Why is this Surging Waves 10? The reason is because, put simply, there is a lot working against Sarkaz Only in this game mode. And a lot more so than, I would argue, Integrated Strategies 2. IS2 was basically a lot less fleshed out, there were a lot less mechanics, and the only really bad thing about IS2 was the starting collectible. But here, there's so much worse, and we've got plenty of time to talk about it. There's so much worse things that just factor in and just cause an absolute nightmare. So to start off, there are a lot of conditions with as Surging Waves goes up and up that become nightmarish. The one that I have to point out is, well, enemies get increased movement speed, they get increased attack speed, they deal more elemental damage, I'll get to that in a second, but the biggest one is the +1 hope cost. Now you saw I started with Medic Sniper, like similar to the way I did back in IS2 where I would start with Vigna, Meteorite, double E2, that sort of thing, or I think single E2, I'd have to look at the footage. Anyway, the reason I do that is because I literally have no other choice at higher difficulties. I got W there, which is very, very, very good. Okay, hope cost. Hope cost is an absolute nightmare, and that's one of the Searching Waves requirements as you go up, +1 hope cost. That basically means that I can't take Mind Over Matter, I can't take the dice start, I can't take any of the starts I would ideally want to take, because I just don't have the hope to get good starting units at the start. I just don't have the cheap units to work with, and that makes it into an absolute nightmare. Now luckily, Medic Sniper isn't that bad, because as you saw, it gave me a free WE2, it'll also give me free Medic E2s as time goes on. You'll see it becomes more and more valuable. But ultimately, it's just a pain to get started, because ideally, if I could start with anything, I would start with Mind Over Matter or Resourceful Dice. But I'm stuck with Medic Sniper instead, which limits my options in some scenarios. I make a mistake here real quick, so I will take a quick detour to talk about it. So, 25 enemies. It's hard to... the enemy count of Cistern varies pretty wildly. In this case, I do get an extra boss. It's the dog. I should have put Vigna on the tile to the left, the one that's bordering the water, so that she could block anyone in the water. And the reason I should have done that is because that's within W's range. So I could have potentially combined that with the die to kill the dog here. The dog would have temporarily turned visible because Vigna's blocking, then I use W to stun, etc, etc. Anyway, that sucks, but it's fine in the end. So, okay, yeah. Hope cost, really annoying. I can't take Mind Over Matter, which bums me out, but whatever. Get the Rusted Razor there despite not killing the dog, which is pretty good. Just checking the encounter here. Okay, we're good. Full hour. I get the ring there, which is pretty good. Ideally, I don't feel like either of the rings is necessarily better than one another. I think they're both pretty balanced. Can't get the Medic Operator because I don't have any hope. The die roll doesn't pay off. Okay, yeah, other things that make this really difficult. Recruitment vouchers. Yeah, same as IS2. Remember, Sarkaz only has one Vanguard, one Defender, as of recording, one Vanguard, one Defender, no supporters, and no specialists. And that's really, really annoying. Like, I cannot stress enough how obnoxious it is to basically, towards the mid-late game, have 4 sets of vouchers, basically half the vouchers you can get, be more or less useless. And that's so frustrating. Not to mention that a lot of our operators are 6 stars, something all power moves, and because of that they cost the most hope, which is again really annoying. It's a lot of stuff. Let me see if I'm forgetting anything else. Elemental damage, yeah, elemental damage in IS3, I don't know if I've said this already. Elemental damage in IS3, worse than IS2. I don't know why exactly that is. I think partially it's because enemies they do more elemental damage. Also that the defense shred can be really obnoxious because of the stingrays and the little crabs. But in general, it's just so much that works against you. There's other things that I probably haven't mentioned as well, like for instance the debuffs you can get, the amount of light, the debuff collectible you get on the 3rd floor, all sorts of stuff that really adds up to be problematic. I honestly forget what debuff collectible I even got on this clear. I totally forgot. We'll see. But fortunately, there are a few things that work in our favor. Like I said, we get some free E2s from the medic sniper combination. It also lets us start off with one of our snipers. And snipers, I cannot stress this enough. If you take anything from what I'm going to tell you, it is this. Snipers are king in IS3. I don't care what anyone says. Snipers are just absurdly broken. And the reason is because they fodderize all of the seaborne enemies. Like the crabs, they outrange them. The jellyfish, or sorry, not the jellyfish, the stingrays, they just murdered. And W, in her case, she can stun them, which is even better. That's why you see May so many times, or Crusalter so much in IS3. Anyway, snipers are so good. The one that I haven't mentioned, crabs, stingrays, the throwers that you see 2 of them here, they make short work of them as well. Plus they have AoE, plus W and Meteorite have AoE, which really helps. In general, snipers are just the best unit you can get in IS3 because they deal so much damage and have so much potential. I absolutely love snipers in this game mode. And you'll see that W is basically the queen of this entire run, especially as it gets later on. Anyway, Omen challenge mode, ironically it's easier than Malady, the stage I avoided, because Malady is awful. Originium Dust vibes. Anyway, basically the strat for this stage is you have to just kill the throwers before they can ruin your melee units, and then make sure that if there are any, what's the word? If there are any invis units, that you can block them or stun them before they get the Vigna. Okay. So like I said, there's a lot. We've got a full hour. We've got a lot to talk about here. And don't get me wrong, I love IS3. I wouldn't be playing it this much otherwise, especially since the monthly reset hasn't even happened. Like, CC11 is going on as I'm recording this, and yet I'm playing IS3 because I like IS3 that much. It's a lot of fun, it's just that there are some things that are absurdly frustrating about it that makes it high risk, high reward. Speaking of which, Flames of the Inquisition. I recently got this collectible. This is actually the first time I ever got it. Best collectible for W. Or one of them. And the reason I say that is because it makes her so good at killing Highmore. And also, combine that with Hand of Pulverization. Ooh, baby. You can pause to see what that one does, but it's basically a huge attack ramp up as long as she and Meteorite keep attacking. Juicy. And this is where the clear starts to get really good. You saw I got Concentration Disorder there. That's the easiest, that's the least harmful of the 3 debuffs. On top of that, of the 4 debuffs that you can get. So, to quickly explain for those who have not played IS3, if you go into IS3, you basically have a chance to get 1 of 4 and you lose enough light, because it's based off of your light. You have a chance to get 1 of 4 potential debuffs to your units every time you enter a new floor. I don't remember all of them by their names, but basically the choices are you get Concentration Disorder, which is what I got, where all skills are activated automatically. You get Fiametta passive on everyone, which is basically everyone takes damage. When they take damage, they go all the way down to 1 health, and they will continue losing health unless you heal them back to full. The third one is frozen. Your units basically get frozen, I believe it's for 15 seconds, which is really annoying. But then the worst one of them all is I believe it's called metastatic aberration, which is basically all of your units' stats and their redeployment time get halved. By far the worst one, it completely ruins units. Like, beyond belief. You think concentration disorder is nothing compared to that. So as you can see, I got concentration disorder. I don't care. The reason it's better is because it's not the stat half. That's all I care about. You also saw that I got Vigna. I think it was Vigna who got it. Yeah, Vigna. We got the failed specimen, which is probably, in this case, it is the best collectible, or the best debuff collectible I could have gotten, because it literally doesn't matter if Vigna has that debuff. So I got lucky there. I'm getting a lot of good luck at the start of this run, which is really important, because that's exactly what I need to actually be able to play the game. And you saw W just did 15k to that one croc. That's honestly nuts. I told you, W is just insane. With the right collectibles, you can say it about any unit, it's true. But in this case, W just turns into an absolute monster. Anyway, 24 units, usually, quick tip, usually Troglodyte Tribe, regular and emergency, has only 23 units. That means the 24th unit is most likely a mini-boss, and there he is right there, the stupid bear. The reason that so many of my ending 2 runs have been for naught. So we're gonna bully this... I can't say that. We're gonna bully this fool, because I, frankly, am done with him. So what we're going to do is we're basically just gonna shred him, we're gonna use the die for safe measure, and then we're gonna split box with W to make sure that he doesn't get the buff before we can hold him up for a bit longer. He basically gets turned into paste here, which I love to see. Goodbye, fool. Anyway, we killed the bear. Very nice. Supa would be very mad at me for talking trash about Earth sign operators, but I don't care. Kuma, if you're watching, I know you would be mad too. Anyway. Ingot, subjective shield, fine. Totally cool. Unfortunately, we don't have any hope, which again is obnoxious, but whatever, it is what it is. Precarious defense, annoying stage, but as long as we have enough CC, and as long as we basically have enough, the best way I can describe it is, AoE snipers make short work of everything except the Naruto runners. I love calling them that. Except the Naruto runners. So as long as we can stall the Naruto runners for long enough to deal with them before they get to Mudrock and Vigna, we're good. So you see I put Hibiscus here on the SP gain tile, which is very good because that means she's going to have a bunch of extra slows to use. You'll also see right there to the left of Vigna, that, for those who have not played IS3, is called a mimic chest. And if you've played D&D, you know exactly what that mimic chest is going to do. So we're going to watch here as the mimic chest gets activated. Give it a second. I don't know if it's now. It should be here in a little bit. The splash happens earlier than I thought it would. Yeah, right here, I think. No? Pause, champ. Hang on. Hang on. There we go. Yeah. So the mimic chest walks to the blue box, directly to the blue box usually, and it does a lot of damage. So the only way to deal with it is basically to stat check it. So you'll see here it decides to challenge Mudrock. It fails because Mudrock is tanky enough. Thank goodness. And we get 10 ingots off of that. And that's one of the things I really like about IS3 compared to IS2, just the fact that the chests are more interesting, because you have the regular chest, which is 2 ingots, you have the Thorns chest, which does reflective damage back to the operator who's attacking it, which gives 4 ingots, and then you have the Mimic chest that you just saw, which gives 10 ingots. There are a lot of things about IS3 in general that I feel like are a massive improvement over IS2, especially since IS2 was really comparatively simple. But that also means that IS3 is a lot more unforgiving and difficult at times. So that's part of the reason why this is only Surging Waves 10 instead of Surging Waves 15. If I could do 15, I would, but Hypergriff needs to give me more operators before I can. Anyway, we get the bear again. Unfortunately, we're not in as good of a position to deal with the bear this time because he immediately walks out of W's range. So the only way we would be able to deal with him in this scenario is if Mudrock was able to buy enough time. And as you can see, he makes pretty short work of Mudrock, which is unfortunate. But, you know, it is what it is. There are some things about this. The unfortunate reality to IS3 is that a lot of it is outside of your control. The RNG is quite literally outside of your control. When the mini-bosses spawn is outside of your control. What debuff you get outside of your control, etc, etc. And that's what really, and the collectibles you get. All of that is worse than IS2, to the point where it's just, even if Ascension 15, Surging Wave 15, is theoretically possible, it's just so annoying to try and get there. So I'd much rather have a slightly easier time with Surging Waves 10, because this is still really difficult, and more importantly, it lets me talk to you all about how basically this works for Sarkaz Only. So one of the things I'm trying to do, I get the Mizuki encounter, thank goodness. I get it at the last second. I take this extra key down to the encounter room anyway. I don't think I find anything interesting here. Another thing, keys. Keys are really interesting. I really like the addition of keys. Again, there's just so much in IS3 that is an improvement over IS2. I can't recommend it enough. But anyway, we get what is probably the easiest boss here. Ironically, we get the variant. I don't know why. So, here's the thing about floor 3 bosses in IS3. The walking guy, basically the Garcia lookalike, you'll see here in a second, easiest one, by far. All you need is some form of AoE and you can basically foderize him. Second hardest is, oh, I forget his name. It's the Inquisitor. Basically, Irene's former boss. Oh, Dario. I think it's Dario. No, Dario's the one who died. Dang it, I forget who it is. Yeah, oh, it's Carmen. Sorry, I think it's Carmen. Okay, so Carmen is the second hardest because he does a lot of damage with his shots, but it's also really easy to deal with him as well as all of the units on his stage, as long as you kill the Invis Reveal guy. As long as you kill the Invis Revealer, you're basically good. You'll see here that W is making short work of this boss thanks to the Flames of the Inquisition collectible, like I said. Basically just easily fodderized without even needing a single melee unit. The hardest floor 3 boss is Separation and Unity because it's 2 lanes and it's really annoying having to deal with the mortar guys as well on the top versus the crab guys on the bottom. It's just awkward. It's hard because it's an awkward stage. And it reminds me a lot of the puppets, or no, sorry, not the puppet stage. It reminds me a lot of the dual Icemen in IS2. You'll know what one I'm talking about, the Archer and the Swordsman. And you saw there, one more quick note, that for some reason, I don't know why, in IS3, each floor 3 boss has a variation, like an alternate form, an alternate stage that slightly adjusts things around. I don't really know why. I guess that's something they're kind of experimenting with. 20% HP is just better here than Draft of Speech, like, no contest. Especially for bosses, because it's all enemies. I don't know if it actually applies to bosses. I think it does. Anyway, W concentration disorder literally doesn't matter. No wandering into Wonderland. I'll talk about that in a bit, which is unfortunate. I feel so rushed to talk about everything. This one isn't worth it. This one is worth it. Do not take this one if you have, I believe, under 50 hope. Or sorry, 50 light. Because you get a negative, I don't get a good collectible here anyway, but you get a debuff collectible if you do it below a certain amount of light. So be careful when you take that encounter. Anyway, yeah, each floor 3 boss has a variation. It doesn't really change too much. Like, for instance, Carmen only has 1 shot. And then in the alternate one of Separation and Unity, the Seaborn Walker has a lot more attack speed. I guess that's something they were experimenting with for IS4, which as of this recording is still a little bit away from coming out. But yeah, I found it. There's a lot of interesting things in general, and I'd love to talk about IS3 in the comments, like how you've been dealing with IS3, what your thoughts on it are compared to IS2, and if you were there for IS1, etc., etc. I'd love to talk about it. Speaking of IS1, no wandering into Wonderland, which is really unfortunate. I don't get wandering into Wonderland on floor 5 explorers, which sucks. For those who are unaware, wandering into Wonderland is basically a special optional floor that you can take from an encounter, and basically combined with floor 5 and floor 6, I think floor 5 and floor 6 stages, it also has one of the 3 ending bosses from IS1. So it's basically like you're going back in time, hence the name Wandering into Wonderland. Of those 3 IS1 bosses, for Sarkaz Only, ideally you want to get the Walmart Faust, because Mudrock can easily deal with Walmart Faust combined with Surtr. Second hardest would be the Walmart Frost Nova, or okay, Walmart Faust, Target Frost Nova. Okay, so Target Frost Nova, and the reason Target Frost Nova is so hard is because just in general the enemies are obnoxious, the freeze mechanic is obnoxious, and I didn't notice before, but I think ground units can actually hit that boss. I don't know why. So strange. In general, it's just like Frost is annoying. Thankfully, no black tile creation, which is nice, but yeah, just by virtue of having freeze, it's just an annoying boss. Use the key to get the collectible here, plus 50% physical. I think I get Surtr here. Yep. Juicy Surtr. Very good. Okay. Anyway, and the hardest one by far. So you've got Walmart Faust, you've got Target Frost Nova, and then you've got Avenger meets Skull Shatterer and turns into an absolute demon Chad. The one that I am actually the most afraid of, not only because of the stat buff it offers, or it has just by existing, right? Your DP turns to nothing. Just by it existing, not only is that a problem, it is also extremely tanky. It does a lot of damage to ranged and melee units. And worst of all, the stage setup is extremely awkward. Because, let's say, okay, hypothetical. One of the easiest ways, in theory, for Sarkaz Only to deal with it is to combine Surtr with Meteorite plus W, hitting it from the sides, right? Because that way they can create a choke point in the middle that deals with all the fodder. You would think. Unfortunately, you also have to deal with all of the archers on the sides, which make it even more nightmarish. All of it culminates into a stage that I have yet to clear. It's actually, I think, the only stage in IS3 I have not cleared so far, other than the one with the Saint and the you will run into trouble later. I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, Chad's Skull Shatterer is almost impossible to deal with. That is by far the hardest boss. There are ways to deal with him, but it's just so bloody obnoxious. So if you do go into Indigo Cradle and to wander into Wonderland with Sarkaz Only, if you see that boss, you'll know it because the stage is called Avoid Unsafe Roads. You're gonna wanna get rid of him as soon as you can, to say the least. That is a nightmare stage. If you can. So here's what you do. I know we're on Sea Cavern, Sandstorm, but this stage is kind of straightforward. Avoid unsafe roads. Here's what I think you do. And again, feel free to discuss this in the comments. I'd love to talk about it. Fin Catcher Shoal, mandatory. you need Fincatcher's Shawl, or you need an absolute absurd amount of healing to make up for the fact that Meteorite and W are going to be taking a lot of damage. Meteorite on the left, or W on the left, Meteorite, W on the sides, on defense tiles, hitting, creating a choke point in the middle. Okay, got that. Next, you're going to need at least 2 blockers, which again makes it that much more annoying, alongside Surtr. So maybe on the far blue boxes you put, I don't know, or maybe next to the healers you put Vigna, and you put, I don't know, Flamebringer or Mudrock, right? So that's step 2. Step 3, I'm not taking the lantern here because it's not worth it, since concentration disorder is kind of a joke. 4-leaf clover fossil is really good because it gives you that extra choice, and you'll see that actually comes in handy later. Yeah, 2 blockers, 2 AoE snipers on the sides, ideally both of them with each of their own healer, and then Surtr to deal as much damage to the boss as possible. So the reason I'm circling my cursor, circling the circle. The reason I'm circling the encounters there is because I still have not gotten the second Ending 3 encounter, and that makes me understandably concerned because I have a 50-50 chance of getting it. So, needless to say, I'm kind of nervous. And luckily, I have a choice here. I do not want to take Out of Control because Out of Control is with the Ubi stage, the flower stage, the hardest floor 5 stage. Very annoying. I decided to go for Spread instead. Unfortunately, I make some mistakes here with Spread that make it much harder than I needed it to be. But, again, hindsight 2020. With Spread, like, Silvergun has talked about this in his videos, basically just let the big guy leak or kill him in the middle. That way you can have the entire exterior ring not coated in, the creep. And since the creep isn't there, it makes it so that it's much easier to handle all of the seaborne enemies that spawn. Anyway. What was I gonna say? Lost my train of thought. So I haven't talked a lot, I don't think I've talked a lot about my strategy here. I said that snipers are really good. I will talk about my strategy because I can't think of much else to talk about. Okay. So, how does Sarkaz Only, given all the circumstances, beat IS3? The short answer is snipers, and by snipers I mean W. Basically, I said already the snipers are extremely good, and W in particular is a queen when it comes to killing Highmore. So, the strategy, as well as dealing with last night actually, so the strategy is, in a nutshell, to buff W as much as humanly possible, and to, you saw there I'm leaking some of the mobs, which is the mistake I made. I should have, whatever. Yeah, W, very good. Basically turns Highmore into fodder. She perma-stuns Highmore, especially if the Inquisition's collectible. She basically just reduces her to paste. Combined with that, she's also a great way of dealing with the Stingrays, which are otherwise an extreme pain to deal with. The hardest of the new Seaborn enemies, in my opinion. Yeah, you want W, you want Meteorite to complement W, and then, other than that, you basically just want everyone else as normal. So, top priority is W. It is basically just W's Bizarre Adventure right here. There's no other way to put it. Like, with IS2, I feel like Surtr was extremely good. With IS3, I feel like W is extremely good. And the short answer is just simply because she just has so much that works in her favor of the right collectibles. So you'll see just how crazy she gets when we get to Highmore. But anyway, Spread is done. I leaked more than I wanted to, that's fine. I have the reason for the extra life points is so that I can have that extra padding in case I need it, which as you'll see I will. I get the healing effectiveness here because it's just better than the starting SP. I think I already get some starting SP anyway. I think I get the coin later, that's why. I didn't get any good vouchers there. Pool of Procreation. At first I thought this stage was awful. It's actually not that bad as long as you have a way to, like, avoid the enemies, like, stacking up. So basically kill the enemies as fast as possible and avoid them kind of like grouping together. As long as you do that, you're more or less fine. What else? I guess I can talk about collectibles. So there's one collectible I'm not talking about yet. I've already offhandedly mentioned it. I'm not going to talk about it yet because it is probably the most broken collectible in IS3. I did a poll. I did a YouTube's community poll a week or so back, asking people what they thought the most broken IS3 collectible was, and they seemed to agree with me. I think half of all people agreed. So we'll talk about that collectible in a little bit. But yeah, some of the best collectibles in the game. I talked about Flames of the Inquisition just because it's so effective with the SP generation. Basically a hand of diffusion for everyone. So I can't stress enough how broken that is. The attack speed items are still good. Unfortunately, they got nerfed, which is fine. That was probably going to happen anyways. The hand items, like Hand of Diffusion, Hand of Pulverization, those are still really good. What else? There's some pretty nutty ones out there. I mean, there's one that gives like 40% arts damage, there's 35% physical damage. Trying to remember. Just give me a second. The die, anything that buffs your dice is good, like the golden die. One that I think is underrated is the it kind of looks like a chocolate bar. It's the one that reduces enemy HP and movement speed by 15%. That's also really good. Old fan. I think Silvergun thinks it's the most broken relic in the game. I also think it's really good, but in my case, I can only abuse it like to 60% attack instead of, I think, 80%, which is unfortunate, but whatever. I don't know. I don't know what else is broken. I'd have to look at the I'm gonna get the collectibles list here before I fight the floor 5 boss, so I'll be able to talk about a few more there. But just anything in general that you want plus damage percentage, you want SP gain, you want anything that improves your RNG, etc., etc. The petting ticket. So both of these collectibles here, for instance, are pretty good. More dice rolls. You can promote 2 operators. In this case, that's great for me because I promote Surtr and I promote Meteorite. Another new thing that got added, I get Ifrit here, I think, yeah, I do. Another new thing that got added that I haven't talked about is the commissions. So I take the commission, I get it, I try to recruit someone. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay off, which is sad, but whatever. Better to have the chance than to not use it. Thankfully, I get the other ending encounter, and now we are set for ending 3. Unfortunately, then we get Umi bonus. How do I pronounce that? Hold on. I'm just thinking about it. Like, as I was recording, I'm just thinking about it here. So give it a second. This is one of the, like I said, this is one of the hardest floor 5 stages, mostly because if you don't have a way to cure elemental damage, it's a total pain. I'd love a collectible that, like, reverses elemental damage. Like, it keeps track of how much elemental damage you took, and then it slowly reverses it over time. Like, you see it go backwards. That would be really cool. This stage, so the strat to this stage, kill the mutant as soon as possible to avoid opening up the alternate path for the flowers. You would do that with, even if it's challenge mode. It's much harder in challenge mode because there are 2 mutants, but it's still doable. Anyway, once the mutant is dead, you want to basically set up base camp right where I have it right there. You can actually set it a tile back to get a bit of extra time. That was a mistake on my part. Anyway, I put Mudrock ahead here. I probably should have put her behind Vigna and co. at the blue box to try and avoid her taking as much sanity damage, whatever. Reason I put her there is because I want to try and make sure that I can block the flowers in a place where not everyone is taking the sanity damage at first. The strat here is basically just to try and stall the flowers as much as possible. So you'll see it's not that simple in practice, but it's worth a shot. So 4 flowers get activated here. Mudrock just comes out of stun, gets immediately stunned again. Unfortunately, the W mine does not hit them, which means that one of them leaks here. They are sadly too fast. I think... yeah, we leak at least one more, I'm pretty sure. Or actually, no. No, we don't leak anymore. That was the last week. Yeah, it's just basically like a flower Zerg rush. Can you stall them out? Can you not stall them out? Etc, etc. It probably would have been better if I had used W skill 3 there, but because I have concentration disorder, I can't time Mudrock skill 3, I can't time W skill 3, etc, etc. It's not that bad, but I still, on stages like this, it does make an impact. I get the chest there just because, and then I activate the final few flowers. No big deal. Would have been nice if these two activated sooner, but whatever. So I will really quick talk about. I'll save that for a little bit. The stages floor 5 that I didn't get. Piper's Call is probably the easiest of the bunch. All you need is some AoE to deal with the knights and maybe some dodge to deal with the musician with the saxophone or whatever the heck he has. The one I didn't get, Out of Control. Out of Control is really obnoxious. It's just straight up obnoxious. All of the Naruto runners, all the throwers, the 2 awkward lanes that you kind of have to work in at once, just a lot adds up to be annoying. I get Nightingale here because she's just better in this case because of the AoE plus the arts resist. And then I have 60 ingots, and you notice that downtime recreation is one of the options. So I decide, you know, these collectibles are pretty good. I'm gonna bully Kenna. So keep in mind, I have 8 life points here. So I can leak 7. Keep in mind, 7 is the total leak count. So I think about it for a little bit. I don't think about it enough, and I go into the stage. And I turn up the music here because just the music is jazzy. In fact, I'm just gonna let the music speak for itself.
出発だ。救急診療の準備は整いました。いつでも治療ができます。行くよ。私にできるのは治療だけじゃない。敵も逃げられると思うな。今日はご機嫌なの。ついてないわね。
That's my first mistake. I put W too far away so that she wouldn't be able to do as much optimal damage to the units when they're waiting. Fortunately, I get the invulnerability here, so these two manage to get through because they're basically unkillable. Setting up a choke point here is really hard because unfortunately, I can't control when Mudrock skill 3 activates, so I'm kind of left helpless to just see if she has enough durability to deal with the Super Crocs, which unfortunately she does not, for the warriors. It's kind of just like, how well you do on this stage is in large part dependent on when and which buff Kenna gives to his soldiers. So in this case, I kind of decide to use Mudrock. I shouldn't have. That ends up backfiring very quickly. And unfortunately, again, you saw they get the infinite life. I don't think these two live. No, they don't live. But just really annoying. I decide to put down Surtr. I panic a little bit. I activate her early. Again, since I don't have a block, these two get through, which is really annoying. Plus, they get the healing. They would have gotten the healing anyways, which is obnoxious, but it is what it is. Final wave. I'm really glad they added this into the game. This is so fun. If this doesn't come back in IS4, I'm going to be so sad. Let us keep bullying him. Let us keep fighting him. I want to keep fighting him. The damage here is really good. but unfortunately it's too late. So those two get through. And then it's like, oh, am I gonna lose? But no. In the stroke of luck, I shouldn't have recalled Meteorite there, but just in the nick of time, the last one dies. So I get out with 1 life point. And this is this has basically been my runs in a nutshell. I am very bad at keeping life points. I am very bad. Like, some people get away with like having 60 life points or something absurd like that. I am lucky to have 2 life points by Scotty. I am very lucky in that situation. That is totally not foreshadowing, by the way. Anyway. So we bully Can out, we get a bunch of stuff, including Nightingale E2. Very nice. And then, we decide to have some fun with RNG. So Downtime Recreation is actually, I would argue, better in this mode than it was. I'm sad that it doesn't have a lot of variety, but I do like the coin machine, like, getting like a set of expected results, and then, like, if you decide to skip it, you still get a reward, like, you know, I like this. I like the changes here. It feels a lot more fair. At least in the terms of, like, you don't have to go into it. So we're just going all out. We've got 60 ingots total to start off with, so we've got, I think, 20 tries. We're looking for collectibles here. The die rolls are kind of mid. Doesn't really matter. We're looking for collectibles. So I do get some good collectibles here. So give it a second. It would have been nice if there was at least one other variant of Downtime Recreation, but again, it is what it is. I hope they add back a variant in IS3. So here's the first collectible. 35 HP, really good. And then at the last second, 20 starting DP. Now, I didn't talk about the DP collectibles before, but the DP collectibles are really good. And the reason I say that is because DP collectibles are just... Imagine if we had starting DP in regular Sarkaz Only clears. It would be so good. So good. I love it whenever I get starting DP. It just makes my life so much easier. I cannot stress enough. There's also the, that I remember, there's the 100% attack and HP blade that you can get if you boot up the machine. I'm looking here real quick, hold on. Impenetrable is good, minus 10% HP is good, etc, etc. You're going to see that I did a transition there before I started. That's actually because I recorded this around half an hour later. And the reason I recorded it half an hour later was because I had to buy a Joe plushie. And I will show that plushie on screen once I have it. Cool. Eventually. Anyway. Yeah, so like I said earlier, W is basically designed to, shred the stage. She is going to make short work of Highmore with, with Meteorite to help her. The SP gain combined of skill 1, combined of automatic, deploy is just so good. You want to put W, here's an important thing. If W is one of your only snipers, put her where I put her. And there's a few reasons why I put her there, so we're gonna talk about it. So the first reason, as you saw, she technically can hit enemies in the upper right red box. And that's really good because she can make short work of the crabs and of the stingrays before they can float over it. That really helps you make short work of any enemies that spawn there. So that's the first important reason. The second reason is because you don't want to put W any closer than she already is to Highmore, because Highmore in her phase 2, the hardest thing about Highmore by far is the transition to phase 2. Because when Highmore transitions into phase 2, she's basically guaranteed one hit, combined with the ASP debuff on all of your units, which is really annoying. So, in a nutshell, you want to make sure that you kill Highmore phase 1 as quick as possible, which you'll see we'll do here. So watch Highmore very carefully. We're going to kill her as soon as physically possible. So we make some good time here. Already dead, basically didn't get off the center tile. That's actually really important that she didn't get off the center tile, because that means W can stun her again. And you'll see here I play it very carefully. I put a dummy. I put a cage there. I activate Nightingale skill 3. I even use the die, like I am very afraid. So you see, very carefully I get a good die roll. And then Highmore is down again. So that's the scariest part. By far the scariest part is when Highmore transitions into phase 2, because the increased attack speed debuff of the ring combined with the sheer amount of damage that she can do is really, really scary. And I know you didn't see me take a lot of damage there, but take my word for it. It is terrifying. That phase transition is terrifying. Anyway, the rest of the stage is really straightforward as long as W can kill the stingrays in time. It's good. So I haven't talked about the golden collectible yet, and I'm going to say it here. The golden collectible, other than Flames of the Inquisition, is Fincatcher's Shawl, which is the camouflage item for ranged units. And the reason that's so good is kind of self-explanatory, but just to give you a hypothetical. Let's say I have Fincatcher's Shawl before I'm going into this stage. What I would do is I would be able to afford to put W in the upper left instead of the bottom right. I could, but more importantly, I would be able to put ranged units wherever I want to deal with the stingrays. That is huge. Suddenly, W is not going to get hit by Highmore at all. Suddenly, she is able to go wherever she wants. It's just such a good collectible because it basically turns your already good ranged units into... It basically makes them invincible, which is just absolutely insane. I cannot stress enough how good that collectible is. So I get a key here. I get a useless supporter collectible. Look for a bit. I decided to get Flamebringer just because. And then, remember that we got the fossil from earlier? Remember the fossil that gives you an extra collectible choice? So, for instance, at a boss stage it goes from 2 to 3. Watch this. It was the third option. Yes, it was the third option. The Godmother's token wouldn't have been that bad, because that would have debuffed Scotty, but I still really wanted, really wanted, or preferred to, take that, that collectible instead. Anyway, Canut isn't there anymore because we already killed him, or we killed his posse. We get the life points here for extra safety. Deep Cognition. So, in IS2, you will remember there was Sarkaz Desire and Ursus Desire. Sarkaz Desire was kind of a meme, and Ursus Desire was extremely hard. By comparison, now we have Deep Cognition and, basically the double Pompeii stage. Both of them are really bad. Both of them, I'm just gonna come out and say it, I think, and this is a hot take, feel free to call me out on it, I think that Deep Cognition and Water Fire Union, both of the floor 6 stages, are worse than Highmore. I think they are by far worse than Highmore, and I can explain why double Pompeii, that speaks a lot in and of itself. But why is this one so hard? Well, first of all, because I have to use starting DP to set up the roadblocks, but also because these corporate guards are so strong. They are so absurdly powerful. And you'll see, I've done this stage a lot of times, I've tried to think of an ideal strat. What I've come up with is essentially the best way to do it in theory is to combine Surtr with Mudrock at the start. And the reason I do that is because I want to ideally outstat them while Surtr kills them from behind with arts damage, because the weakness here is arts damage. Unfortunately, that does not work because, like I said, they are extremely powerful. So I use the die too late, and then they walk over to Surtr, and then I try to stall it. Fortunately, Surtr dies. It's really unfortunate. Give it a second if she's gonna die. So close. So Surtr dies, that makes things a lot more problematic than they should be. So at this point, I need to buy time. W is going to make short work of the stingrays, which, again, really good. Unfortunately, she's not going to get the SP bonus off of the big guys, and since one of them is invisible, that just makes things that much more nightmarish. So I am in kind of panic mode, and I am trying to buy as much time as I can for DP, as well as to just gather all the enemies together and make the most of W skill 1. So that's what I'm trying to do. Trying to buy as much time as I physically can, because basically, if I had to describe it, using ground stages, like using melee operators on this stage is an absolute nightmare. But you have to use at least one because of the invis guy you just saw leak. So I am basically panicking, trying to make sure I can kill as many of these as I can. Still going, still trying. It's so obnoxious. Like, look at how tanky that one on the bottom is! Hibiscus did nothing to him! And this is a super steroided W, and look, she did nothing to them! It's insane! It is absolute carnage and madness. And I'm just here trying to buy as much time as I physically can, but at the same time, it's like, oh my god. Is there any hope to be had? So I'm getting DP here, I'm thinking about it, and I am terrified because I do not want to go through another 100 attempts to get back to this point. Because Surtr, even Surtr is easier than this. Yes, even Surtr is easier than this. So I am panicking at the moment, because I know there are a bunch of melee units still left. So I decided to try Mudrock combined with Surtr again. And I hope that it works. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Here's why. No, I still get it through, but it doesn't work as well as it should, and here's why. 1. The invis guy gets through. And he kills Surtr before I can regen, which is really annoying. That's problem 1. Problem 2 is that, once again, Mudrock, despite having a bunch of stats, is still not strong enough to deal with these guys. She dies too. So now I am basically having to deal with 6 units, and I need to kill as many as I can. Sorry, there were 7 units there. No, there were 6. And I need to make sure that only 4 get through. So I am over here hoping to all heck that Midnight is at least tanky enough to hold one of them. And thankfully he is. I don't bother trying to hold the rest, I know it's not gonna happen. So I just let the rest through. Thankfully, we survived. With 1 life point again. And I mentioned 2 life points, right? Oh, I'm gonna go into Surtr with 2 life points. Yep, that's what happens again. Well, the good news is, at least I got minus 12% attack. I decided to get Ifrit E2 here, because even if I got Stormiter, it doesn't really matter. Surtr stage. Okay, let me talk about this real quick. This is the grand finale. Ironically, it's easier than Deep Cognition, like I said. And the reason for that is because, again, Surtr can't do anything to my ranged units since they have the camouflage, which is unimaginably good. Because in her Seaborn form, in Isharmlaw's form, she does true damage, and it's just so annoying to deal with. So, my strat is simple. I'm going to nuke Isharmlaw as soon as possible, with Surtr plus Ifrit, and then I am going to whittle her down with whatever's left with W plus Meteorite, and then basically from there I win. This stage is all about basically how fast can you kill Isharmlaw, and how much do you have the ranged camouflage or not? Because if you don't have the ranged camouflage, do you have really good healers? Anyway. So I'm thinking about here if I should start with, I should have started with, I make a mistake here. What I should have done is I should have started with Ifrit and then deployed Surtr after, but I don't. That's a mistake on my part because I felt like I needed to have, Surtr down immediately. That's a mistake. I could have waited. Anyway, even though that happens, we still get through almost all of Isharmlaw's health, which is really good. So I set up W. She doesn't get damaged by the needle or the spear thrower because thankfully she is ranged camouflage. Scotty is slowly healing back up, but not nearly fast enough. Meteorite does big damage. Turns back into Isharmlaw. I decide to put Ifrit down the middle. W, big damage here, incoming. Ifrit cooking Isharmlaw. Isharmlaw is basically dead. Finish her off. False God defeated. Eat garbage, Anonym. Anyway, yeah. From here, the stage is just really simple. Just make sure that your ranged units don't somehow get undeployed, and just kill everything that moves. I find it a lot easier to just go full ranged units on this stage, especially if you have the camo item. This is all about getting that darned camo item, I swear. Flames of the Inquisition plus the camo item, those are the two that are the match made in heaven. That is the definitive way to win in IS3. Just because they're both so unbelievably good. Like for instance, let's say that I'm fighting Last Knight instead of Sculptor. It's still really good. I think okay, I don't know if cold still applies to camouflaged units. I'm not going to say anything definitive on that, but even if it does, you still get the 2 SP on hit, which is huge for keeping Last Knight stunned and as far away from the blue box as possible, which obviously does wonders. So yeah, it's just the two collectibles combined, and then if you have Old Fan as well, all of them go together so unbelievably well. And ideally, the best way to play IS3, take as many risks as you can afford, do Wonderland if you can, get as many collectibles as possible. I recommend starting with Mind Over Matter if you can, even if Sarkaz Only can't. The Resource with Die one is also really good. And have fun, because honestly, like I said, it's a lot more fun than IS2. It's also a lot more frustrating, but you know, it is what it is. And we are left with the last enemy. Maybe I should let it through. Maybe Mizuki would want me to let it through. It's helpless. It's just a single crab. We can let one life point through, you know? Look, it's sitting on the SP tile. It wants to live. Should we be merciful to the Seaborn for all they have done to us? No. The plan from here is, by the way, okay. So next video will probably end up being CC11 week 2, if that doesn't release before this one. Long term, IS3 ending 2. I don't know if I want to do an IS3 ending 1 video because ending 1 is kind of redundant since, you know, you have to clear ending 1 to get to ending 3, etc, etc. But, yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. It was very frustrating to record. And if you have any questions or comments, want to discuss it, feel free to join my Discord, feel free to talk with me in the comments, all that sort of stuff. And honestly, I'm just glad it's over. I'm really looking forward to IS4. I'm interested to see what Hypergriff does with that. I'll do IS4 videos obviously when it comes out in 7 or 8 months from when this video records, but for now, that's it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.
ねえ